Inflation and interest rates are crushing American families, and economists warn the upcoming expiration of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act will only make it worse and increase taxes on everyone. Both Biden and Trump have very different economic policy proposals they've been touting on the campaign trail, and joining us now to compare both of them and talk some more money headlines is Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. Welcome to you, sir. Thanks for joining us as always. First, let's break down Bidenomics, which, by the way, we're not hearing a whole lot about anymore. President Biden has said, though, if reelected, he would allow those tax cuts to expire, which you say would totally go against his pledge of no higher taxes on anyone making less than $400,000. So give us an example of what the Tax Foundation discovered would happen when these tax cuts expire.
Yeah, it would be an economic train wreck if we allowed these tax cuts to expire in their entirety. And Biden has gone back and forth. At times he said we're going to get rid of all these. At times he said we're going to only get rid of certain of the tax cuts. But if you look at the numbers here, a single worker making $60,000 a year could see his or her taxes go up to the tune of $1,800 if you get rid of the tax cuts entirely. If you look at a married couple with 3 kids, making $200,000 a year, their taxes could go up by $7,500. That's horrible news any way you cut it, but particularly at a time when prices have gone up nearly 20% across the board. People can't afford that type of tax increase. So we really need to find a way to lock these tax rates in, lock these lower taxes in to make sure people can keep their heads above water during really tough economic times.
Not only that, Biden also wants to raise the corporate tax rate from 21%, which some credit as what saved businesses in America during the pandemic. How much could we save if Biden's green energy tax subsidies were repealed?
Yeah, we're talking about nearly $1 trillion if we were to get rid of those green energy subsidies, which I think we absolutely should do. You know, what Biden did with that was pick winners and losers. He said, if you're making green products or contributing to green infrastructure, we're going to give you a tax cut. If you're not, your taxes are effectively going to be higher. What we ought to do is get rid of those green subsidies and use those to pay for those tax cut continuation for working families, for small businesses, to make sure we have a good tax code. Let's use that revenue from the green energy tax credits, which shouldn't be there.
You know, Congress put these budget caps in place last year just to break them, right, with this emergency spending package. Let's talk about some of President Trump's economic proposals. One common theme I know on the campaign trail I keep hearing, of course, has been cutting taxes and costly regulations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really frustrating what you just said about what Congress is doing. Just last year, they agreed to cap spending on about 1/3 of the federal budget at $1.6 trillion. They can't keep to these caps. They already busted them with regard to the Ukraine spending and Israel spending package. And now they want to bust them further in the Senate to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. It's really irresponsible for them not to be able to stick to their word. We really need to focus on lower spending. That's one thing politicians don't talk about enough because it's not as politically popular as cutting taxes. But if we're going to get inflation under control, that has to start with fiscal responsibility in Washington.
President Biden plans to propose this 5% cap on annual rent increases for landlords with more than 50 units. You agree with many economists that say that this nationwide rent control will actually do the opposite. So talk about the consequences of this.
Yeah, this is one of the worst ideas I've heard coming out of Biden's mouth, and that's saying something. We talk about capping rates for rent increases. What you're doing is telling developers, telling construction companies to stop what you're doing, stop building new houses. That is the way we get housing prices under control. The number one way we get prices under control is by bringing more supply online. If companies cannot make any kind of profit from bringing more supply online, they'll stop building. If they stop building, rent prices are going to go up far more than Biden would like to see, than any of us would like to see. So it's a horrible, horrible idea. Well, it belongs in the scrap heap.
Look no further than New York City to see how that could work. I like what the Wall Street Journal said. They said, quote, it's hard to think of a worse idea than imposing rent control nationwide through the tax code. It would reduce investment in new supply and drive up rents in units not subject to government caps. Look at New York City, where nearly half of units are rent stabilized and the average one-bedroom apartment costs $4,300 a month. Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold. I think that says it best. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.